Welcome. I am Kimberly Taylor, owner and host of the New Jersey RealLife Podcast and a licensed broker associate with Coldwell Banker in Maplewood, New Jersey. My journey in real estate started back in 2002 as an investor when I purchased my first multifamily home in Irvington. Despite a family friend in real estate advising me against it, I took a chance and it paid off. That experience, though challenging, sparked my passion for empowering others in real estate. After over 15 years in retail commercial banking as a manager, I took a leap of faith and transitioned to a full-time real estate career. Now, with over 2 decades of experience as a proud New Jerseyan, I am dedicated to helping you make informed decisions and build authentic connections. My vision is to provide you with the knowledge and tools you'll need for success at every step of your real estate journey. I am thrilled to have you with me today. Without further ado, please join me today in welcoming our first guest, John Veriano, a real estate professional with a strong background in project management. After graduating college, John started his career as a project manager with the local Port Authority in New York and New Jersey. Following the events of 9/11, he pivoted to real estate, obtaining his license and successfully working as a sales associate for 3 years and has been a manager for the past 17. Currently, John is the branch vice president of the Chester office of Coldwell Banker Realty, where he has spent the last 12 years. His extensive experience in both appreciating and depreciating markets has equipped him to guide associates through the evolving landscape of New Jersey real estate. We're excited to have him on the podcast today. Welcome, John Veriano.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you for inviting me out today. Pleasure being here.
Thank you so much. So, just to share a little bit, I did mention, of course, my journey into real estate was one of a challenging one. I had a family friend who was a realtor who advised me against, purchasing this multifamily home in Irvington, and I took a chance. I purchased it, kept it for about 3 years, and I noticed some trends. I noticed that homes were starting to sell for a lot higher in the area. I noticed that there was going to be some redevelopment in the area. So I decided that I was going to put it on the market to see how it performed. And as a family friend, I trusted him, and, I followed his direction and instruction. And one of the first things he mentioned to me during the listing presentation was that he would not take the listing if I wasn't going to offer 6% commission. He said the price point was too low, that the house would probably sit on the market for about 8 months. And, he said that, in all honesty, that I would have seen a profit on this particular house if I kept it for the next 15 or 20 years. But if I wanted to list it, 6% or he's walking. Now, me, new to real estate, not knowing anything about a sale because I had only purchased, right? I trusted him, and I said, well, if he is a family friend and feels this way, then me shopping another realtor, it may be a worse conversation. So I asked him, what did the 6% provide? And he said, I'll get you on a multiple listing where thousands of agents in New Jersey can see it, and maybe we'll get some traffic. So I said, that sounds like a good deal. So within 8 days, I had multiple offers on the property, some as high as 80 above asking. The second time I saw him was him bringing those offers for me to sign. And the last time I saw him was at the closing table, where him and everyone at the closing table walked away with a check as compensation for the sale of my home except me. And the reason why I didn't walk away with a check was because he didn't tell me that I needed to get a certificate of code compliance in order to transfer title, right? Yeah. So I had to wait while my money sat in escrow for about 2 weeks until the inspection period was over. I received my certificate of code compliance, handed it to the attorneys, and that's when I was able to get a check. And what's amazing is the day of the closing, he walked out and he said to me, hey, he was like, I did absolutely nothing on this sale. You did everything.
Wow.
He even told me when I listed the house that I should go to Home Depot and get a for sale sign and put my phone number on it and put it right in front of the house. And they would call me for showings, and I showed my house. He never came back. And I remember that experience, right? And I started this, podcast. And when I decided to go into real estate, I just had one goal, and that was never to let a buyer feel like they're walking through and doing this process on their own, that they're completely exposed, not understanding what's happening, and they just get hit out of left field with information they didn't know. So I wanted to start with the most recent topic in New Jersey, the changes that happened on August 1st, 2024, the changes in commission, because it was kind of an important piece of my experience. So can you provide a brief overview of the key changes to the real estate commission structure in New Jersey starting on August 1st? And how do you think these changes will impact the overall market?
Kim, I think, hearing the experiences from many different agents and clients, what happened on August 1st was a really good change for our business. And I'll tell you why. We've always done a really good job educating sellers as to what we can do in the market, through the marketing efforts and how we're going to showcase their house to get them the most amount of money. But we never really had a good job of working with buyers. Even though we've always had buyer agency agreements, we've never really worked with them.
Right.
And part of the license law on August 1st said that, before you show a buyer a home, you really need to sit down, have a buyer agency agreement with them, explain to the buyer what your value is and what you bring to the table to get the transaction done correctly.
Right. Now, I know that the commission was always paid by the buyer, right? The buyer generally was the one who bought the proceeds, to the table. They were the ones who exchanged the money for the real estate.
Right.
So, in actuality, do you see that there's a difference now in the way that's handled?
Kim, I think with the landscape of the market that we're in, right, there's appreciating market, depreciating markets. And typically, commission has always come out of the seller's pocket, right? There were two parts of the commission, the marketing fee and then the buyer fee. And then part of this, we've always known commissions have been negotiable for many years. I think now with the buyer agency agreement, you need to articulate your value as a buyer, communicate what that buyer agency fee is. And you're right. Many times the buyers would be doing these inflated offers. So they were paying for the commission anyway,
Right.
part of their offer. But now putting out their marketing fee, I think, is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And at least agents will know and clients will know going forward, total transparency.
Yeah. And I imagine the markets are incredibly competitive. So when it comes down to people who can afford to pay that realty fee separate from the actual proceeds from the sale, it would give them an advantage also.
Yeah.
The requirement for buyers to sign a buyer representative agreement before touring homes is a significant shift. What do you think are the potential benefits and drawbacks of this requirement, for buyers and agents alike?
I think it's a benefit. I don't really see it as a drawback at all, because I think buyers were going out there and just touring homes without knowing the value of what we do as professionals. And I think having the buyer agency agreement, now we have to really sit down with them, tell them exactly what we're going to do for them and how we're going to really protect their rights as a buyer. I think some of the drawback, or the only drawback I can see from the buyer, is they've never had to do this before. So, they might be uncomfortable signing a buyer agency agreement where they might feel locked in to a contract.
Absolutely. I know that it certainly benefits agents, especially in this type of market where it's so competitive. Sometimes you invest a year or two, working with a client, only to find out if you've been out in touch with them for a week, they have now secured a home with another agent they just met.
Yeah.
And that buyer agency agreement certainly protects us
Yeah,
against
it
those
does.
type of transitions. So with buyers and sellers now negotiating agent compensation, how do you foresee this changing the relationship between agents and their clients? Do you think this will empower buyers or complicate negotiations?
I don't think it's going to complicate negotiations. I mean, commissions have always been negotiable, Kim, right? So, if a buyer really truly doesn't want to sign a buyer agency agreement with a compensation. It could always be developed into the contract of sale and negotiated between both parties. So I really don't see it as a negative factor. And I think, sellers today, in my opinion, I think sellers should still offer compensation to a buyer's agent, because that's what's led to more traffic through homes and multiple offers on homes.
Absolutely.
Right? So you don't want to have sellers limit the buyer pool by not offering compensation.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, it really does empower the seller to have a little bit more control, right? To make it very clear that this is the most I want, potentially taken out of my profit, right? So
It's always been about the net, Kim. I mean,
Right.
when the offers are coming in, depending on how the buyer agent is structuring their offer, the seller is always going to look at the net result as to what they're putting in their pocket at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. The new rules require detailed written agreements. What steps should agents take to ensure that their agreements comply with the regulations while they're still being understood?
Yeah. So I think, part of, I think there was a lot of confusion in the beginning. Agents weren't too sure on what buyer agency agreements they should really fill out. And, many companies have designed their own buyer agency agreements, because one size really doesn't fit all.
Right.
So you might want to structure a buyer agency agreement where it's maybe a one-time showing agreement, or maybe agree to show 5 properties, but at least you're partnering with the buyer to let them know exactly what you're going to do for them. And I think it's dangerous for a buyer to want to work with multiple agents, right? Unless the agents are not familiar with a particular area. I think, once you get to know the realtor, and like you said, when you get to know an area really well, it's in the buyer's advantage to really work with you.
It is, absolutely. Especially after your initial interview and time spent, you get to really truly understand what they need, what their family are looking for, so it's easier to connect them with a home. Starting that relationship all over again with a new realtor sometimes can get them into a home that was a little bit off from what they intended to buy. So, with the National MLS removing certain fields related to commissions and concessions, how might this change the way listings are presented to potential buyers?
Yeah, so the major change on August 1st really said that listing agents could not disseminate what the co-broke would be if the seller is offering compensation. So one of the ways that we find out now how compensation is offered if the seller is offering it is to email the agent, text the agent, call, pick up the phone and ask what the seller's compensating. There's really no restriction. The agent could put it on their website. They could put it on properties. The only restriction is posting it on the MLS.
Right. It's wonderful when you see it on the marketing materials. That way it's straightforward, and you can really take advantage of the time of the essence piece when it's time to get that offer in quickly.
You know it. You know it.
All right. The intention behind these changes is to increase competition and consumer awareness. In your experience, do you think this will lead to more informed buyers or create confusion?
I don't think it's going to create confusion at all, Kim, because, when you're sitting down and articulating your value and going over the buyer agency agreement, I think buyers need to be educated, right? Because sellers, we always educated the seller, but never really had the conversation with the buyer. So to sit them down and go over the financing piece, to go over, home inspection issues. So I think it's going to really set a clear tone to know what the buyer can expect and also know what the agent brings to the table.
Absolutely. And I mean, to have a deep discussion around commissions, if I would have had that in 2005 when I sold my home, I certainly would not have been confused, and I would have definitely felt empowered to negotiate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what advice would you give agents preparing for these changes? How can they adapt their strategies to remain competitive and continue providing value to their clients?
Kim, change is constant in our business, right? So we've had, appreciating markets, depreciating markets. And I think it's very important for agents to evolve with changes. You could either resist change or jump on the wagon and learn about it. So I think the more agents educate themselves, the internet has been a vehicle of, information, right? So there's no shortage of getting to know about the changes. I think really tap into your office manager, right? To say, look, how do these changes affect me? Can we do some role play? Can we go over, how I can put that into my value proposition just so that I can educate buyers? But I think agents really have to continually to educate themselves to know how to incorporate the change.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you. So listen, let's jump right into the current market, right? Let's jump into the state of our current New Jersey real estate market. What are the key indicators that you're seeing to confirm that we are currently in a seller's market?
Yeah, Kim. So seller's market, right? So sellers are very happy. What really determines that, right, is the lack of inventory.
Right.
Let's face it. So lack of inventory. How about the multiple offers that are on the properties, right? So when you have a seller getting 20, 30 offers on a property and most of them are, if not listing price, well over listing price.
Yes.
So that dynamic has been strong for the last, 2 years?
Easy.
Easy.
Yeah. And, Redfin just had a report in June that showed that nearly 62% of the homes that were sold went under contract in 2 weeks. The median home price in New Jersey has increased by approximately 8% year over year, which, 5% is usually the average, right?
Right.
So the market is strongly indicating competitive buyers that are out there, and competition is definitely favoring sellers. And just to highlight some data from the New Jersey realtors, it shows that beginning in January of this year, the median sale price was $500,000 in New Jersey. And as of August 2024, that median price has jumped up to $591,000.
Yeah.
It's incredible, potential equity growth, value growth in homes that, honestly, my parents wouldn't have been able to see unless, years ago, unless they sat on their house for like 15, 20 years. We're at a very unique time, in this market where, buy anything, because the potential growth over the next 5 to 7 years is incredible, right?
Yes, so I agree.
Maybe it isn't your forever home, but it can certainly be a catalyst to get you into your forever home within a lifetime. So how has buyer demand and inventory shifted in recent months? What does this mean for homeowners looking to sell?
So I never think it's a bad time to sell your house, right? We all know that the markets are very cyclical, right? So I think with buyers, I think some buyers are very frustrated today because some buyers that have put offers on homes and got outbid, some of them might be just waiting it out a little bit to see if the market's going to shift and change. But I think sellers, if you need to sell your house, there's no reason to wait. Right. Who knows what the market's going to do 8 months, 12 months from now, right? So if you're looking to sell, put it on the market, the inventory is still in your favor, buyers are still out there, I think it's a good time.
Absolutely, especially, with sales prices exceeding asking. Have you observed any specific trends in the types of properties that are selling faster in the market?
Kim, I think about, where we've come, many, many years ago, many buyers were looking for the fixer-upper house, right? And now today, and I have an analogy that I use always in my sales meetings to say, this shiny penny syndrome, where if you come across a penny that's really shiny and a penny that's really dirty, crusty, and muddy, people always gravitate to the shiny penny.
Right.
No different in real estate, right? So, the homeowners that have really well-appointed homes, updated kitchens, updated bathrooms, wide open spaces, right? Maybe converting that dining room into an open space. So I think those trends are going to continue where, if the homeowners continue to, provide the eye candy, I think the buyers are paying for that.
Yeah. And if they're buying future equity with higher prices, right, or higher offer prices that eventually get accepted, the money that you would normally have available to you to renovate, is now a little bit constrained. Yeah. Money Digest article, the second quarter of this year, highlighted that after COVID-19, homes that have additional office spaces, larger yards and green spaces, have seen an increase in demand by about 20%. So,
Yeah.
post pandemic, those trends, will probably continue as well.
Yeah, fire pits too in the backyard,
Absolutely.
doing a
Staycation.
staycation.
Okay. All right. So, what do you believe are the primary factors driving the current seller's market? Are low interest rates still playing a role, or is it more about inventory shortage?
Yeah, I think it's both, Kim. I really do, because inventory is still very low in a lot of key areas. And let's face it, interest rates, when interest rates drop to 2-3%, I know many people that got into the market and love that. And I've never experienced that low of an interest rate or mortgage rate ever in my life. And so with interest rates or mortgage rates around 6-7%, that really hasn't stopped the buyer demand in buying houses.
Yeah, it seems like, basic supply and demand, right? Inventory shortages have driven up prices. Active listings are down about 30% compared to last year, which exacerbates competition and drives up price.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Some of the other anticipated impacts are that there hasn't been a naturally occurring organic front load of inventory, right, to the market. And it seems that during COVID-19, during the pandemic, about 80% of homeowners refinanced for a rate below 3%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a significant portion of those homes are owned by baby boomers, right?
Right.
And baby boomers are, holding on, to real estate because it's cheaper for them to keep it,
Yeah.
right? A lot of them have even children that are, still carrying student loan debt.
Right.
So they found it's a little bit easier to just expand the space,
Sure.
to give their children that additional time to save money before they go out on their own. So in your opinion, how resilient has real estate market been during the broader economic recessions?
Kim, you always have, changing markets, right? Appreciated markets, depreciated markets. And when you think about recessions like the financial 2007, 2008, and we recovered from that, right?
Yeah.
People thought it was doom and gloom,
Right.
that we're not going to recover. Same thing with 9/11, right? With COVID. People were afraid of the pandemic and what that was going to do to home prices, but we worked through it.
Right.
So I think recessions will affect inventory levels, prices, things like that, but we've always been able to work through any of those changes.
Absolutely. And I think we've learned a lot. I think we've learned a lot since the downturn of the economy in 2008. We
Yeah.
learned that it's important to try to keep homeowners in their homes, right? So, we have an important election coming up. On one side, they've proposed a federal homeowner bill of rights that has had a lot of success, for instance, in California, which, of course, enhances a lot of those protections for people who own homes. It allows, families to stay in their homes, help them, avoid foreclosure. It promotes early intervention so that we can, avoid a catastrophe. Homeowners can advocate for themselves and seek alternative options. Really, it really is more focused on making sure that everyone gets fair treatment and reducing incidences of foreclosures overall. Even tenants have an adequate time to secure alternative housing to avoid homelessness.
Right.
So all of these pieces, I think we've learned since the downturn of the economy. And, I know after the pandemic, a lot of people thought that we were going to have this tsunami of foreclosures and short sales that were going to come to market that would convert the market from a seller's market to a buyer market. But experts anticipate that, it's going to be more like a slow continental drift.
Yeah, I believe
homes
that.
come into the market.
Kim, and I'm a firm believer. Look, if what happened back in the financial crisis, right, where I think some buyers didn't really understand, they were taking out these two mortgages, right, and got themselves into trouble. And you want to let homeowners know that if you can't pay your mortgage, reach out to your lender.
Yeah.
Really try to mitigate rather than not pay the mortgage
Right.
and get into it. So
Absolutely. And don't forget about calling your realtor.
that's right.
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 Especially
We'll bail
in
you
today's
out.
market.
We'll bail you out.
I mean, listen, with that support, often people forget.
That's
This
right.
is a lifetime relationship. This is not a one-track transaction deal.
That's right. That's right.
So how do you anticipate potential economic downturn or recession might impact the housing market within the next year?
I don't think it's going to, Cam. I think we're going to continue to be on this healthy trend. You got to be careful because, the fall and the spring market have always been our best seasons, right? Now that we're coming into the holiday season, things tend to slow down, and people shouldn't confuse that slowdown with like a change in market, right? So the market's very, very cyclical. So it takes a pattern of several months to determine if you're really starting to slide.
Right.
Wait to see the inventory build. Let's see what happens with home prices. I think home prices are going to continue to go up.
Yeah.
I think the market's going to remain strong.
I do too. I think that, there are a lot of eyes on it. Real estate is the most critical piece because we're so closely impacted by supply and demand. It looks as though the government is keeping an eye on the trends because it seems like real estate leads us into a recession, but it can also lead
Pull
us
us
out
out.
of it.
Yeah.
So it seems like when they start seeing buyers back away because of impacts on interest rate, they're very sensitive to it,
Yeah.
just like the recent decline in interest rate that we have. I anticipate that, we may have a few, drops in interest rates that will help
Yeah.
the market.
And I think sellers too,
rebound.
Kim, I need to be, what's happened over the last 2 years with sellers wanting the most amount of money. There's no problem with that. But
at
you
all.
got to understand though, that when their house is sitting on the market, right, days on market start to increase, sellers need to go ahead and adjust accordingly
Right.
and not try to position their house to say, wow, let's price it where that neighbor got 80,000 over.
Right.
Always price it with market conditions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So, John, we are grateful to have you here today to share valuable market insights on how best to navigate these changes in the New Jersey real estate landscape from a legislative perspective and sales perspective. So please, John, share how listeners can reach out to you and learn more about your services.
So it's not so much about me, Kim, being the, branch manager of the Chester office. I would like them to reach out to agents like you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for bringing me on board today. This has been great. Kim, it's been a pleasure knowing you and just seeing all of the hard work that you put into this. And if you are looking to buy, sell, rent, or relocate, you need to call Kimberly Taylor
I
to
appreciate that,
represent
John.
you on all of your real estate needs.
Thank you. I appreciate it, John. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, you guys.